Okay. Hey, everyone. This is Kate Johnson, and I'm here with Chris Ragain. Do you go by Chris or Christopher?
Depends on if you're my mother or not. Everybody calls me Chris. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we're here with Chris, and we are going to learn about his company, Halon Tax, and the partnership program they have with bookkeepers. This is something that I'm particularly interested in because I have just signed on my first. I brought a client on in December, and I included in that this partnership with Halon. So he's my first, way I've worked with Chris and his company, and I'm still kind of new, and I'm still trying to get the kinks worked out. So I'm glad to talk to him, and then I hope this provides a way for the rest of y'all here in the Bookkeeping Side Hustle group to learn how you can kind of offer tax services without actually being the one who does it. And that's the position that I'm in. I'm not going to do taxes, but more and more clients, kind of want that as part of the package. So,
Yep.
Chris, tell us, what is Halon? Who are you, and why did you create Halon Tax?
Sure. Well, thanks for having me, Katie. I've been in the group for a long time, or not that long, but for a while,
Yeah.
and enjoy the group and try and participate where I can. So I have run a CPA firm. I'm a CPA. I've run a CPA firm that did bookkeeping and tax work for close to 20 years. And I started getting into development about 7 or 8 years ago, taught myself to code, all that kind of stuff. And we've been building the only softwares that integrate with QuickBooks or Xero that do any kind of tax functionality. So the first app that I built, which is actually older than Halon, is Tax Planner Pro, and it's a very popular tax planning app for CPAs and people who are professionals doing taxes. But Halon can be summed up this way. Halon is a way for bookkeepers to outsource and to have actually a tax department in their firm. So
Okay.
that's how you want to think about it. And the way to think about this really is, let's say that you hired a CPA or a group of CPAs to work inside your firm. You would not be the one answering the tax questions when the clients ask them, right? You would be saying, you need to go talk to our tax department.
Right.
That is what Halon is. So we have built this portal, and we built some functionality around it. We built a billing platform and a pricing schedule to where it matches up very well with how bookkeepers do things. For instance, bookkeepers tend to bill monthly, right?
Yep.
But
Ideally.
the traditional tax accountant bills at, like, it's almost like fee for service, right? You come in during tax season and you pay them $2,000. Well, the reason that doesn't integrate well with a bookkeeping firm is because that's pretty hard to quote your client, right? When they walk into the client that you had that walked in November, let's say, and said, I want you to do my bookkeeping and my taxes. Well, you can't say, well, I'm going to charge you $450 a month for your bookkeeping, and then in February, I'm going to charge you $2,000
Right.
for your taxes, because it just kind of, it's wonky. It's a weird sales pitch. It doesn't work very well. So what Halon's done is we've created monthly packages to where you can match that up with what you're charging and say, we're going to do your books and your taxes. You're going to pay me $450, and you're going to pay Halon $50 a month, and together my firm is going to do your bookkeeping and your taxes. And Halon has CPAs that will work with you and help you and answer my questions, will work with me. It's a very integrated solution versus the traditional solution is very unintegrated, where bookkeepers tend to try and stay away from the CPAs or the EAs that are doing the work. The EAs and the CPAs don't have anything to do with the bookkeeping. Honestly, probably 50% of the time whenever I was running my firm, I was hearing all kinds of things about CPAs and bookkeepers being at odds.
Yeah.
I mean, and I see that in this group. I see it in the other groups that I'm in. There's not a lot of respect for one another sometimes, and sometimes that relationship is strained. So I've built this company around the idea that we are going to work for bookkeepers. So the staff, the people who work here, the CPAs, the folks who run operations, from the top down, we've built this in a very respectful way where we're trying to say, the bookkeeper channel is our most important channel, and we're going to do everything that we can to see them be successful, and through that, you see success. Now, One piece of advice that I have given for the last 10 years as I train bookkeepers and accountants, I'm on the part of the Intuit Trainer Writer Network, and I speak at QuickBooks Connect and that kind of stuff, is bookkeepers who offer both books and tax, I feel have a much better chance at winning business than those that just sell the bookkeeping side.
Yep.
And clients just like having it all under one roof. It may not seem right to us as accountants because we very much see it as one thing or the other, but to the client, they don't. And so this is meant so that you can offer this as a integrated package in your firm and then just send us the work. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and so I've come across that. I would say, my clients are probably on the smaller side, and so I think the concept of having two different vendors that they're trying to work with, an accountant and a bookkeeper, I mean, that's just kind of beyond the scope of their business at that point. I mean, even if we could divide it up and still charge them the exact same, it's just too much. They're just growing. They're still learning everything there is to know about whatever it is they're doing, and so to have just that one-stop shop is huge. And so I've talked to a lot of
we're in the bookkeeper side hustle group. So one of the things that I want the bookkeepers to understand is the tax accountants are starting to get into this bookkeeping game.
yes.
Okay. And that represents a bit of a problem because if you take a client of yours to that CPA or that EA that does primarily tax work, 2 years passes by, they may forget how they got that client. They just know this client and they've decided to get into the bookkeeping game, and you may find yourself without a client because they're competitive to what you're doing. Halon is not competitive at all. We don't have a bookkeeping operation. Our software is not geared to be able to do that. And we've really prioritized this idea that we're going to partner with the bookkeeper. We have a value proposition that really can't be matched by another tax outfit, both in price and in that we're not going to be competitive with you at all. And I don't mean to say that all are like that. That's not the case. But it really has become a bigger issue as of late because most compliance folks, which is tax or the people who are doing write-up bookkeeping style, they're starting to realize that they're getting pricing pressure. And they're getting pricing pressure from TurboTax Live, they're getting pricing pressure from H&R Block, all that kind of stuff. And they start looking around at their clients and they say, well, where can I find some more revenue, especially that revenue that I can get when it's not tax season?
I mean, I have questions that everyone answers before they join the group, and there's no shortage of people who are coming from a tax background, and their story is, I want to add bookkeeping to my tax practice, or I would like to transition out of the stress of tax and have some more, annual, smooth my annual revenue. So you're exactly right. So this is exciting. We learned about Halon Tax. Kind of touched on this, but you've been in our side hustle group for a while, I guess, is there anything unique about Halon being a particularly great fit for those of us who are, serious bookkeepers, but who aren't doing this 40 hours a week? They're the mom that's growing, they're the retiree that's, wants a new job that they can travel around with, but just a few clients. Sure. Is there any unique things that you'd like to say about being a good partner for those of us who are just starting?
One of the things that we're trying to do is make sure that we are extremely price competitive, meaning we are almost in every situation going to be one of the least expensive solutions if you shop around for tax. And here's why that's important to you. There's nothing that I have seen over 2 decades of doing this that says that most clients don't budget in their mind that they can spend a certain amount of dollars on accounting. And for them, accounting means bookkeeping and tax. Okay, so they think of it as, I can spend this much. Typically, that is somewhere between 1% and 3% of their revenue.
Okay.
And I'm a big believer, if Ragain Financial, the firm that I ran for 20 years, we priced based on revenue. And so I have a lot of data that shows us what people will pay at different revenue ranges. So let's say they can bill 1% to 3%. If the tax accountant is charging a large amount of money to do that work. The client usually says the bookkeeper can only be paid whatever's left. They don't expand that budget, that 1 to 3% of their revenue, out to say, well, I've got kind of a pricey tax solution, so I'm going to increase my budget because I need to pay for the bookkeeping a reasonable rate. They don't do that. And many of you that are watching this know that. They've run into somebody who pays the tax accountant $2,000, but then says that the bookkeeping should be $80 a month.
Yep.
They can't stand that it's not $10 an hour or something, right?
Right. Yep.
The advantage with Halon is that we have these very low static prices based on the size of the client. And so you'll never have to wonder whether the lion's share of this client's budget is going to go to you or to the tax side. So for instance, someone who makes up to $100,000, or let's change that up to $250,000, they pay Halon $35 a month. But $250,000 a year means that they have a budget of around $5,000 to spend. So if they're paying Halon $500 of that, they should be paying the bookkeeper the other $4,500. Does that make sense?
Yes.
That is very powerful when you're out there pricing in the market, trying to make sure that you're competitive. So now you can go to the market and say, we're going to charge $500 a month to do the bookkeeping for a $250,000 business. And in exchange, you're going to not only get your bookkeeping, but you're going to get your tax return done. And the tax return is only going to cost you $35 a month, and you're going to pay us the other $465.
Okay.
That is real money in your pocket that if you were out there shopping with another CPA that say you partner with, I don't think it's quite as lucrative for the bookkeeper. So that, I think, is our unique selling proposition.
Awesome. I got some more questions here, but I also wanted to let people know if y'all have a question, go ahead and chime in the comment section and we will get to them. But Chris, can you just start telling us, I'm a bookkeeper, I want to sign on with Halon. Tell me about the partnership program, how it works. What do I, as the bookkeeper, and these folks listening, what do they need to do? Like today, maybe they've got a client in mind. What's the partnership going to look like? What communication do I have with your team? Mm-hmm. The whole package. What's the partnership?
So the first thing I have to say is signing up as a partner is free, right? Which probably comes as no surprise. Every partnership program is free. So there is no cost to going to our website, going to the bookkeeper page, which is right on the home page, and there's a big button that says sign up for the partner program. Okay. And when you do that, you set up a Halon account, and there's an opt-in inside Halon that says, it kind of says, are you a bookkeeper? And you say yes, and it says, do you want to partner in the affiliate program, in the bookkeeper partner program? And you check yes again, and that turns on your partner program. Okay. So at that point, you can now use your email address that you signed up with to send clients to Halon. So we don't have you sign them up inside your portal, because what happens there is some people wish we would do that, but what happens is the client starts sending you tax information. And what did I just say earlier? If you had a tax department, you wouldn't be dealing with that, right? You would be having someone who worked for you deal with that. So what you do is you say, Mr. Smith or Mrs. Smith, go to halontax.com, sign up for an account. The first question you're going to get asked after you create your login is, who's your bookkeeper? You enter your bookkeeper's email address, which is you.
Okay.
And that unlocks the discounted pricing for your user, and we take them through the onboarding process.
Cool.
So our software asks them for their prior year tax returns. It asks them for their all the information about their business. We go through an onboarding process with them that reviews prior year tax returns, helps them understand what kind of add-ons they might like. And all of this is going on while they get a significant discount to what retail users would pay. So when your client sees the prices that we quote them, and then they go to the Halon website to see what regular people pay, your prices are 50% off.
Okay.
So it shows them a lot of value, and they're like, if I don't have this bookkeeper, I actually don't get these discounts.
Okay.
And that's a fairly important piece of the program, is it helps with retention. It helps with the client understanding you're bringing that value to them by being associated with your firm. Once we onboard the client, we provide them a dashboard. And probably the secret sauce to Halon, and we can talk about this too at some point if we talk about the pricing some more, is our software does some things that no other software in the market does. Again, I make the only tax softwares that integrate with QuickBooks Online and Xero and things like that. We're able to take a set of books and do a tax return with them because we integrate with the GL in about 5 seconds.
Okay.
Tax accountants around the block can't do that. They have to gain access to the QuickBooks. Most of them are hand keying this stuff, and so it just takes them longer than it takes us. So we have very aggressive pricing because we have some very, very intelligent software. That being said, once a client is onboarded, they get this dashboard, and we keep them apprised of their tax situation at all times. But here's the part probably that most bookkeepers like the best, is they also get that dashboard in their account. So they can see a list of all of their clients, and they can open those dashboards for their clients. They can set meetings with the Halon tax team that's been assigned to that client without the client ever knowing it. So you could set a meeting with the CPA that's been assigned to your client and have a meeting with them about bookkeeping, about tax, about whatever you want to meet with them about. The client would never know that that took place, and that is part of the service. That is included. Unlimited meetings is part of the service.
Wow. So yeah, and is it all, if the client wanted those meetings as well, like if they are of the nature where they want to feel like they can talk to their accountant, they can set up those meetings too?
They can.
Okay.
They can. And they can set up separate meetings from what you're setting up. We do a cursory bookkeeping review every quarter. So I still have the bookkeepers that worked for me that are in our office working. And what they do now, they don't do bookkeeping. They review other bookkeepers' bookkeeping.
Okay.
And the reason that that's handy is it's a second set of eyes.
Well, yeah, and so I onboarded my first client, and I think it was right around Christmas, so I don't really remember the timeline, but probably a week or two later, I got an email from, I guess, my contact saying, "Hey, Kate, this client's books look good, but I need to check out this and this and this." And I think there were 2 or 3 things and it was a brand new client, so we were still working through some stuff. So thankfully, none of it was shocking to me. But had it been confusing to me as a newer bookkeeper, then I could have just contacted that accountant
That's right.
and not had to look like a dummy. Thankfully, I didn't have to do that this time. But
we would never. So one of the rules of bookkeeping reviews is we don't actually communicate what we're telling you to the client.
Okay, I didn't even pay attention to whether he got that or not.
Yeah, so having done this for a long time, I would be super mad if a service I was working for was showing me errors in the books
right?
to my client.
Yeah.
You might have other accountants that might do that, but we would not do that. So in our system, each client is tagged with an advisor so that we know who the bookkeeper assigned to them is, who referred them.
Right.
And we send that information to the bookkeeper, not to the client. It's up to you if you want to tell the client about it. We're not going to. The reason we review these books, well, there's really 2 reasons. One is because we know all bookkeepers work sometimes it's a very lonely business, right?
Right.
You're on your own, you're doing this stuff every day in your house, trying to take care of all the other things in life. So having a second set of eyes on things is kind of nice. The second reason is we're doing the tax returns. So we have to make sure that the financials are right. And so we're kind of reviewing these from the perspective of we're taking responsibility for them like you are. So you've really got a partner helping you do this rather than an adversary. And if any of you have been doing this for a while, you understand what I mean when a tax accountant throws you under the bus to a client and says, the books are all wrong, we need to change several different things before I do this tax return, that kind of thing. Again,
Right.
I don't mean to be negative, but that is really why we created Halon. It was because that is a big swath of the market where if you're not in partnership with someone trying to help you get to a certain place, you may find that you're in an adversarial position, and that's going to lose you business.
Yeah, so I'll just kind of share a story. So I have no accounting background, definitely no bookkeeping background. I worked in the corporate world for a while whenever I worked before I took time off to have kids. And that last spring was my first clients' books that were going to be used to prepare tax returns. And it was kind of terrifying. And so I don't know if that's going to resonate with any of y'all listening, just this idea of eventually someone else is going to be looking at those books that you have been trying to talk about, like you you know what you're doing, but there's still that hesitancy of just like, oh my gosh, like what if I did it wrong? Luckily, I obviously made it through that first year, but working with y'all sounds like a great thing. And like I said, I got that email. There were some things that I needed to do. I wasn't surprised by any, but the nature of the email was definitely like I could have reached out to this person on your staff if I had questions about what
Yes.
they were saying for me to check. So
The bookkeepers that work here work for you. So
okay.
their job is to make sure that, and we have a CPA that leads that entire group. So
Okay.
just leads the financial accounting group. So their job is to make sure that if you have questions, issues with a client's books and are like, how do I book this? They went out and bought this thing. I've never even dealt with something like this. More than likely we have. And so we can help you make sure we figured that out.
Yeah, no, that's huge. Like for the example I'm dealing with right now is this is a client that there's two partners, and I need to enter their mileage, and I think I figured it out, but I've like, hold on, I haven't done mileage for two partners, and that was causing me just to have like a slight pause, like, wait a second, how do I make sure this is exactly right? So not rocket science, but also just not something that I'm dealing with on a ton, because I deliberately don't have a lot of clients. And I know that's awesome that I'll have y'all as that resource, because
we review those quarterly. So
cool.
Every 90 days, your client's books are reviewed and the feedback is sent to you of if there's anything we see that we want to chat about some more.
Awesome. So the pricing, you and I were chatting about this morning. So let's be clear about how the pricing works. You and I were talking about you're paying for a year. It's almost kind of like a contract. You described it to me as like a cell phone contract. So flesh that out for our listeners.
So we like to charge people monthly. Okay. So that's the first thing to understand. Our prices on the website are monthly prices depending on what the revenue is. Okay. Now, the only time that changes is when it's tax season. So let's assume for the first scenario that's not tax season. Let's say you bring a client to us in June.
Okay.
When you bring a client to us in June, we're going to say, great, super awesome. That client should pay $25 a month. And as soon as they start, so they'd start in 2020, that includes their 2020 tax return that we do in the spring of 2021. So always think of it as whenever the client starts, that's the tax return we're also going to start with. And it makes sense because if you start in June, we're not going to do the 2019 tax return, that's kind of going backwards.
Right.
And then we can do it. Don't get me wrong. We offer something called backwork, which is discounted prior year tax returns, and we'll do that for you.
Okay.
But your package going forward is going to include your 2020 tax return.
All right.
If it's tax season, we charge the same prices, but we require you to pay annually. So, and here's kind of the reason why. If you're bringing us clients during tax season, more than likely you've just gotten the client, right? Like if you're bringing us somebody in February, that client just showed up on your doorstep in January. If you've had them for 6 or 7 months, please don't wait to bring them to Halon for 6 or 7 months, because it's a much better deal to bring them whenever they first arrive rather than during tax season. But let's say somebody shows up and hires you in January and they say, I need all of 2019 caught up, right? I haven't done any bookkeeping.
Right. That happens.
Got it. Totally would love to sell you that.
Yes.
So you say, I'm going to charge you $250 a month times 12 months. So I'm going to charge you $3,000. And to get your tax return done, Halon charges $25 a month, but they also charge annual fees because this is all during tax season. So we charge $300 during tax season. So it's still $25 a month, but we make them pay the entire amount now.
Okay.
If they buy it during tax season, we still include their 2019 tax return during that for that $300. The reason we're charging $300 is because if we started their plan in February and did their tax return in March, we're basically fronting them until they pay us next January, right? Like they'd be paying us monthly until next January. That's a dangerous position to be in, and I would not recommend any bookkeeper do it, and I'm certainly not going to do it in my business. So during tax season, we think most bookkeepers are going to charge one lump sum for these clients that show up like that, and so we're charging one lump sum too. If it's another time of year, like September, and they show up and they say, hey, I haven't I haven't done any of 2020. You need to catch me up. You can still start Halon on a monthly plan, and we'll do their 2020 tax return. Hopefully that makes sense. Just during tax season, we force everybody to pay annual versus the monthly fees.
Because you're getting that previous year's done, and then the monthly fees are paying the next year.
That's right. That's right. But a lot of people come to us in February, pay the annual fee. We do their 2019 tax return, which is being done now in 2020. And then they just do the same thing again next year because they like to pay the annual fee. They like just to pay at tax time. So if you have clients that like that, it's fine. We don't mind that. There's some things they're kind of missing out on, right?
Okay.
Like if they engage us in 2020, we don't review any of their 2019 books. Whereas if they would have engaged us in 2019, we would.
Sure.
If they started us in June of 2019, we would have been reviewing their books all the way up. And so the point I'm trying to make is, if a client comes to you in June, don't wait until February to sign them up for Halon, because you're doing yourself a disservice and you're doing the client a disservice. If they show up in January, what choice do you have? So everybody's billing annually at that point.
What if they show up to me in January, but they're shopping for a new CPA, but for their 2019 taxes, they're happy to go with their CPA from the previous years. So then if you're not doing the 2019 return, then even if they show up in January, they're still just paying monthly?
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
That makes sense. It's $300 for a tax return.
Yeah.
And
if they want it now, they have to pay for it now. If they don't want it for a year and they're going to prepay us from now through next January, we're happy to do the monthly rate because we think that lines up better with how you all will be doing it.
Well, I mean, for most businesses, it lines up better with their cash flow too. How many people don't have the money they need in spring?
And they want to talk to a CPA now, right? Like another scenario. Let's say someone starts a business in January. They started at January 15th, 2020. They don't need a tax return until next spring, right?
But they need a CPA.
But they need a CPA still. So they're like, well, what do I do? And most places would say, well, now you got to pay me hourly or something like that. Instead, we say, no, just start a $25 a month package. We're gonna take care of you all year long, plus do next year's tax return. And you get the benefit of having a CPA all the time for $25.
So I'm thinking about this just from like a business perspective, and your whole business model has to be based on you're doing a good job to keep these clients.
Yes.
Because you're not going to be making, that very first consult you give them for $25 is like the cheapest the cheapest advice in the world. But
well, that's true. Well, and if we charged people $100 for that first meeting, right, we would be no different than anyone else that offers tax services in your hometown or anywhere else. And there are situations where that is a better solution than Halon. So sometimes you'll have clients that show up and are needy, and I mean really needy, like want to sit down with somebody, want to talk to somebody for 4 hours, that kind of thing. That is probably not a great solution with Halon, because Halon's a very virtual experience. So they get a dashboard, it's full of technology. They're still talking to humans when they want to set a meeting, but it's not like walking into the office here and sitting down and us chatting it up for an hour and a half face to face. So there's certain clients that this fits for better. Typically, it's a service business. Typically, they're under $1 million in revenue.
Okay.
Usually, they have under 3 partners, so it's 1, 2, or 3 members. And almost all the time, they're very comfortable with technology. And
that's a fantastic list. I'm going to review. So you said that they are typically a service business, typically under $1 million in revenue, typically 3 or less partners, and typically very comfortable with technology. Everyone, listen, that's who this model is built for. So,
and if they are like that, they get the benefit of this very low price. If they fail any of those tests or several of those tests, they probably have to go a more traditional route, where they are probably going to pay more. They're going to have a very traditional experience. And there are several clients like that. We have bookkeepers bring us clients like that. And we say to them, after a couple interactions, this client's not going to love this, and here's why. For instance, When a tax return is done in Halon, you get a text message. Okay, you get a text message on your phone, and it says your tax return's ready. This usually happens within you hit a button that tells Halon to start your tax return. It is done, reviewed by 2 CPAs, and deployed to you within hours usually.
Oh my goodness.
So it's very fast. You get a text message a few hours later that says your return's ready. Well, you log back into Halon and you review it on your computer, and you can e-sign it at the bottom if you like it, or you can set a meeting with your tax team if you've got questions. There are many clients that don't love that idea.
Okay.
But there are many that do. So being able to figure out which ones are going to like that kind of process and which aren't really is the hardest part of this. Because if somebody really likes if they bring you paper all the time, like let's say you've got a client that loves to send you paper, they're not going to like Halon, right? I mean, they're not that kind. If you've got lots of people who email and send you PDFs and are like, here's my bank statement, I just downloaded it off my bank, and here's this and here's that, that's the Halon client.
So, oh, hold on, I just lost my thought. Oh, well, golly, I don't know what I was going to say. Something profound. It went away. Let me, man, I don't know. Anyway, we got a couple questions here from the audience. I'll pick up one of those. Chelsea Johnson asks, will you have access to the client's QBO account as well in order for you to do your quarterly checks?
We do. So what our program does, we don't have to be set up as an accountant. We connect directly through the API, and then we generate the same financial statements that you see in QBO, both the income statement, the balance sheet, and our team reviews it through our software and then sends those notes to you through our software.
So they're not using one of the slots like how
That's what I'm saying. No one is doing this. The kind of connections that we're making to this bookkeeping software. We're connected through the API through the App Store. So you're connecting your books through the API, and we're generating that, not using one of the users on the QuickBooks account.
Okay. Chelsea also asks, I know that you were doing a free for a year trial that ended in December. Are you going to do that again for those of us that weren't able to take advantage of that?
That's a very interesting question. Let me tell you about the free trial. So we started offering a free trial in June of this year. And saying that if you bring your clients to us and your bookkeeper, we'll give them a free year of Halon just to try it out. We had hundreds sign up. All right. So many that I had to turn it off because we literally ran out of like the slots that we had for it. We've got hundreds of these things running right now.
Okay.
The decision of whether we offer that again very much hinges on the clients and the bookkeepers who are part of the program. If they convert into paid subscribers when we turn, the free trials end in April. Okay. So they get free tax returns, they get all this free stuff. But they go to paid plans, just like any free trial that you're used to in software. It converts to a paid plan in April. If we have a very high conversion rate where those people pay and stay, I'm going to do free trials all the time because it's proven itself out.
Okay. So you have to wait till April to figure this out. You'll get your data.
April, really, it'll be May or June that we start to see whether there's this avalanche of cancellations when they see the charges come through or not. Okay. And if that happens, I'm not going to do them again because we're not making any money from it. But if it does, I'm going to do it in a much larger way. I'm going to do it in a huge way where we don't turn it off. Because if, just like in your business, if you can give a free trial and prove that 80% of the time a free trial turns into a 1 or 2 year client, you should do it every single time. You'll make money at that every single time. I don't care if you're giving away your services for free or not. There'll be an avalanche of people who say, well, Chris, you're devaluing your services and all this stuff. Horse hockey. I've made millions of dollars doing this.
Lifetime value of the client. That's the concept.
Yes, that's exactly right. And so if it turns out that we have that kind of adoption rate with the free trial, I'm going to expand it and do it massively. If it doesn't, then I'm not going to do it again because we didn't make any money from it.
Hey, I mean, I respect that as a business owner to business owner. I think that's great.
Thanks.
I thought about what I was going to say earlier about how, you know, that the first hour of tax advice only costs $25. And I know it's not bound by an hour, but the issue is like most CPAs, you know, they come, or when I think about like the tax process, it's like CPA driven, and the
Yeah.
client thinks, oh, I got my CPA is going to do my taxes, and that's they're concerned about compliance only, and the bookkeeper's kind of second rate, but all of it depends on the good bookkeeping. So when you get your great partners with great bookkeepers,
Yeah.
you don't have to do the
That's right.
tax advice. You offer unlimited monthly support, and no one needs it,
That's right.
because that first hour and a half, 2 hours, maybe, the first 3 months, you're talking to them, you're telling them how to track their mileage, you're telling them how to what threshold they need for their assets, whatever, the kind
Yes.
of the big questions. But then they don't have to ask again, because they have a competent bookkeeper who makes it to where your wizardry on the computer works.
Yes. Yeah, so you get it. So you've just broken down the whole business model. The
Yeah,
reason it's 50% off if you have a bookkeeper is because for us, we end up doing much less work when people have bookkeepers.
probably way more than 50%, but good for you for charging $300
Yeah.
tax return is fine. But I mean, when I think about how just the clients that the people I've interacted with, and the dearth of knowledge that business owners have sometimes, and all they really care about is just like, well, I got to do my tax. They just don't get the concept of, if you just chip away at this on a monthly basis, little by little, so it's not this giant problem,
Yeah.
then it doesn't have to be this like thing that keeps you up at night. I don't know.
Yeah. And you can do the tax return in a matter of seconds.
In a couple, yeah, you get a text
That
message in
is
a few
the
hours.
whole,
That's crazy.
so that's the whole model. And so inside Halon is something called Halon University. It's a
Okay.
32-hour course that I put together, which is advanced stuff. It's not an intro level course. And to get access to it, it's free, but you have to have 3 referrals. And
Okay.
this course, I'm telling you, is like full of some advanced level stuff. And the reason we have it, it's all about depreciation. We go over S corp elections, we go over accountable plans. We have all this stuff. The idea is if we can teach you how to be the absolute best bookkeeper you can be. I know you're in Robinson's course, right?
Yep.
BBL,
Yep.
and it's an outstanding course. So we take kind of a similar approach where we say, you know what, we're gonna try and teach you even some advanced tax ideas that you'd use in your bookkeeping, so that by the time your financials land in Halon, we have to do very little, and we just spit out compliance paperwork.
And you made that university one time, and now you're educating your
The whole
army.
group.
And yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
I'm excited for you about the business model. This is awesome.
Thanks.
Okay. What if bookkeepers don't want to answer tax questions? How does Halon handle that? So how do you recommend a bookkeeper who isn't super comfortable? What kind of language can we use? What do we say to our clients? Do we say, I'll figure it out, I'll get back to you? Or do we say,
No.
go directly to Halon? Like, give us, how do we talk that through? Because I do not
So
know a lot about taxes.
we go back to that thing I talked about earlier, which is you've got to be thinking about Halon as part of your firm.
Okay.
And so when you interact with your client, what would you say if a client came to you and said, Katie, what's my tax look like? And you pay this CPA to sit in your office. Okay, you pay somebody to do this. Your first response is going to be, let me bring Kevin into that. Let me get Kevin on this to answer that question.
Okay.
You're not even going to attempt it. The reason bookkeepers start attempting this tax work is because they're trying to be this one-stop shop, but they don't really have somebody like a Chris or a Kevin to send their clients to. And so they start answering these things, right? They're like, well, let me research that and get back to you. And
I
now
say
you're
that
the
all the time.
conduit
It's terrible.
for relaying tax information back and forth, right? And it's a terrible thing. So what you do is you say, oh, that's a great Halon question. Have you set a meeting with your Halon team and asked them that? Or have you emailed your CPA and asked that? Because they'd love to answer that question. And you start to make it sound like Halon is sitting around with nothing to do, because frankly, a lot of the time we are. And we're waiting for clients to send us questions about their stuff. So even if you don't want to bother the client with it, why would you bother yourself with it? Like, why would you want to relay that information? It's awful. So don't get in the habit of saying, and I'm not saying you, Katie, but I'm saying to anybody watching, if
Yep.
you're going to use Halon, don't get in the habit of feeling like, oh, well, let me check into that and get back to you. No. Send that client to the other department of your firm and say, have you talked to Jerry? Have you talked to Allison? Have you talked to, whoever the CPA assigned to them is? And say, ask them that, because that's a great question. You don't have to be the way station between your client getting help from another part of your firm. I mean, you can copy us on the email. Like, let's say that came through email. And so Katie, you respond and you copy Nick and you copy your client. You say, hey, Nick, client A was asking about this. Can you help him out? And then your head's off. Bye.
Gorgeous.
I'm out.
Yeah.
You know?
That's, yeah. I have like a list of 3 things I need to ask my client's CPA.
Yeah, right. And I mean, that's what this whole thing, and we would love it if, you know, everyone uses email for the simple stuff, but then doesn't use email for the hard stuff, right? Like, let's say you've got a quick question like, should this client lease or buy a truck, right? That's something that clients come up with all the time. They're like, what's the tax implications of all this stuff? That's an easy question for us to answer in email. We have, in fact, have templates that we send people on how to think about which they should do. Let's say you've got a harder question of, should I be an S corporation? Should I create an LLC? Should I be a C corporation? This stuff that's hard. That's where you set the meeting. That's where the client sets the meeting and says, I need to meet with somebody, because going back and forth with email, that's going to be nonsense. That's going to be ridiculous. So we've got both of these options available, and the easy stuff can be done by email and the hard stuff done by phone meeting.
Cool. Chelsea's got another question. Does Halon have a partner badge we put on our website or a profile or something?
It does. Yeah. Once you have one referral, you get access to the partner badge.
Awesome. And Chelsea, you asked about the university course. It sounds like how much it costs. It sounds like the cost is only 3 referrals.
It's free.
Yeah, free.
It's
free
free.
After
so once you
referrals.
have 3 referrals, you can open that up. The course is 32. It's about 32 hours. So it's 32 about hour-long sessions, and I did all of them. And so I take, like, there's a whole course about marketing your firm, where I take you through like the AdWords that I used to build my firm, like using AdWords or Google Ads. There's a bunch of marketing. There's a whole bunch of practice management in it, like using the templates and some of the strategies I use whenever I was running a bookkeeping operation. I give you all the templates. Like, I have a lot of stuff in there. It's no BBL. I mean, it's not to Ben's level, but it is very advanced. So most of the topics are things that are not beginner level stuff, which you'll watch over and over again. We go into something like, for instance, one of them is the child-parent relationship, where you'll have, let's say a business came into you and they have 2 partners, okay? They have 2 owners. Most of the time you might create a partnership or an S corporation or something like that, and they both own 50-50, right? One of the things I go over in that is sometimes it's best to have an LLC partnership, which is the parent, and then 2 S corporations that each of the owners own, and those S corporations own the LLC. You can see we're already getting into some nonsense here, right?
Yeah.
I go through this structure of how to use some of this stuff, not in tax terms, but in very layman's terms, so that you can show your clients some of these opportunities and why they can actually save a lot more money by running a different S corporate. The parent-child's used a lot when one partner likes to spend a lot of money on business things and another doesn't. So I'll give you an example. Let's say one partner likes to drive a Ferrari and one likes to drive a Volkswagen. They have very different price points, right? Well, if they're part of the same business, they want to deduct the Volkswagen and they want to deduct the Ferrari. Well, it's not equitable, right? Like, the business has to pay the Ferrari payment and has to pay the Volkswagen payment, but somewhere the Volkswagen guy's like, well, I want the other money because I didn't spend all that money on the Ferrari. That becomes complicated. My parent-child structure decomplicates all that. So that's one of the lessons in there.
Cool. I mean, definitely advanced stuff, but it would be, you know, a lot of us are trying to bootstrap our education as well. And so three good, simple service clients, which is probably a lot of us should be starting with those anyway, bring those on board, and then look back a couple years from now, you've taken the Halon University course and you're...
Well, and we pay you too. So everyone gets a 10% revenue share of whatever business you bring to us.
Okay.
So your clients get 50% off, but that 50% we collect, you get 10% of that back to you, to your firm. So we're trying to pay it back. We're trying to make this as cool of a situation as possible for bookkeepers and as supportive as possible. You'll see that if you give us a chance to work with you on a client, you'll see that it is a very different experience than you're used to with a CPA firm.
So Any major mistakes that you have seen bookkeepers stumble with when they're trying to partner with Halon?
Ooh, yes. So first, one of the first things that is a stumbling block is not um, reading through some of the emails that we send once you sign up as a partner. As maybe that may be a little so, but we send you a flurry of emails about how to do things.
Okay.
And a lot of times we see those get ignored, and then they come back through chat saying, how do I do this? How do I do that? How do I do this? So my first point would be watch those emails and try and read through all of them.
Okay.
But the other thing I would say is do not forget to market your business as bookkeeping and tax.
Okay. Yeah. I mean,
That
I'm not there in my mind. So,
that is a huge part of how all this works. The
okay.
whole thing breaks if the bookkeeper doesn't do that, because you're getting hits to your website and people are looking for a one-stop shop, and when they don't see any mention of tax, they then bounce. They're not as interested.
I want to go change my website right now.
Yeah, you need to offer both. And you say, we're going to give you both, and it's going to be, and you don't have to give them a breakout on your website of, it's going to be $465 to me and $35 to Halon. You don't have to say that. You say,
right.
If you make $250,000, we're going to charge you $500, and we're going to do your books, your taxes, and everything. They may think that the taxes are $2,500 a year, and you're only getting $250 of it, right?
Okay. At
So
least at
be it.
first, yeah. They'll eventually
Doesn't
find
matter.
out. Yeah.
Once they sign up, they're going to cut checks to you for $465 and a credit card to Halon for $35.
Right.
So in the marketing, make sure that this is coming. You're coming at it with, you're a one-stop shop now.
Okay.
You've got everything.
That's a big mental leap, but I like it. I like the encouragement that you're giving, and that's what I think. Even when I was advertising this discussion with you, I was worried about how to talk about this. I mean, like I put it in quotes, like how you can do taxes without actually doing, but you're saying like claim it, own it.
Yeah.
The tax services I provide in my very substantial, robust business, Heritage Business Services, provides bookkeeping and
Yes.
tax services.
And you
Okay.
don't have to put all of that into an engagement letter. Your
Okay.
engagement letter is the same engagement letter you use. We have an engagement letter for the tax.
Okay.
We're being paid for the tax. You're being paid for the book. So you're not putting it in your engagement letter. You're not billing for the tax. You're not doing anything that would put you on the hook for any of this. But you're marketing it as it's together. It's
Okay.
the only way you can get Halon and me is together. If you went to Halon outside of using Heritage, you'd pay double.
Right.
So it's not going to make sense for them to do that. And they don't need to know how much Halon is or anything else until after they're sold, they love the idea, they sign your contract, and then they say, oh, well, I see you get $465 and only $35 goes to Halon. And you can say, oh yeah, well, that's because because I'm doing the work, Halon charges very little.
Right.
And that reinforces your business, that a CPA firm would not charge much because they know the quality of your books.
Right.
And so that's kind of the way to market this thing.
Awesome. Chelsea, I hope that answers your question. You asked about how to market the services, especially given that the free trial is not available. But I think you just explained it well, Chris. I don't have any more questions, and I think I've answered the ones that I'm seeing, at least underneath here. I don't know if I'm seeing them all, but if you've got any more questions, folks, ask. Otherwise, Chris, how do we learn more about you?
Well, I would definitely say the first thing to do is go to halontax.com, right?
Okay.
And research the bookkeeper tab on the website, because we try and break this down even more. The other piece of this that I would really encourage is we have a YouTube channel that has kind of exploded in people watching it. We have a ton of content on it. Like we have a whole bunch of things about taxes. I did a Bookkeeper Tuesday course last year that goes over a lot of different topics. There's just a lot of content there. And if you just go in and search and Google Halon Tax YouTube, you're going to see it.
Okay.
And there's a lot there to learn. There's a lot to learn about Halon. It has several demos on how Halon works there. And really, it's a very simple service to use. So don't be afraid of it, and don't feel like you don't want to get into tax because you don't know anything about tax. That's like You don't have to know anything about tax. You're hiring someone that knows everything about tax. So think of it that way. Think of it as I'm bringing on an employee that's going to take care of the tax side. I'm going to take care of the bookkeeping side.
How long have you been doing this? Is this y'all's first year doing returns?
No, Halon Tax has been around. This is our maybe our fourth year of actually doing returns.
Okay.
And then this is basically an extension of the business that I had for 20 years. We just digitized it, right? We had the same staff, we had the same everything. So when you were talking about earlier that we know how to make sure the clients are really happy and that we're not getting paid a lot, so we have to make sure client retention is very high. We're taking 20 years of doing this and really taking all the pieces that clients love to interact with us on and not automating that, and all the pieces that clients could care less about and totally automating that. Like you'll never have a client say, so how did you do those debits and credits? Like,
right.
How long did it take you? Because I would love to know, are you working really hard on the journal entries every month? They'll never say that. They say, show me the reports, right? Show me the financials and tell me what they mean. They could care less how the meat's made. And tax is very much the same way. They could care less that we have all this cool software that creates tax returns and does them in 5 seconds and all of that. What they want is when it's time to review their return and they have a question and they're uncertain about something or shocked about something or upset about something, that there's a human there that knows them and is going to take them through it. And so we still have all the humans. We just got rid of all the stuff that they don't care about. And we've automated that, made it fast.
Awesome. And can we tag you in our Facebook group too if we've got questions?
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely. I'm there. And
all right.
I'm trying to answer questions that are relevant and that I know something
I know,
about.
I've seen you. I appreciate what you've chimed in so far, and I'm excited personally to work with you. My ability, I got a new client in December. That's my most recent one, and I brought him on. First one I kind of attempted this Halon partnership lingo in my consult with him, and I'm really excited about it. And these guys, they were like really excited about it. If I was excited about it, they were super excited. It makes it's meeting their needs. They don't have time to think a whole lot about this stuff, and so y'all have impressed them. The parts that I've seen, I've been impressed by, and I'm really excited to bring on more for sure, hopefully to hit that university thing too, and get to learn more, because I know I do need to like bone up on this. It's a part, when I tell.
Well, and do you mind if sorry to interrupt?
No, go ahead.
There's one thing I can add in here too, and this is actually counter salesy. Okay, so this is me actually trying not to sell something in a certain way.
Okay.
We don't break up happy marriages.
Okay.
And so we're a big proponent of, if your client loves their tax accountant, please don't bring them to Halon. Okay. Even if it means that it would make your life easier, even if it means that they can save money, even if it means all of that. Because if they love their tax solution, we want them totally to stay there. There's plenty of work and there's plenty of clients that don't love their tax accountant. Just like there's plenty of people who shouldn't be doing their own books, right? I mean, a lot of the statistics that we see about bookkeeping shows that only about 30% of small business owners really have a legitimate bookkeeping solution. So if you're thinking about a client, the first question to ask them is not, do you want to take a look at Halon? Do you want to do all this stuff? The first question is, how do you like your current tax CPA or EA or whoever's doing it? Do you like them? Are they meeting all your needs? Are you excited at tax time to let them do their work? That kind of thing. If they answer yes to that stuff, leave it totally alone.
Okay.
If they answer no, and sometimes when it comes to selling, none of us are that comfortable with it, right? I mean, selling's kind of a hard thing. If they say, no, I don't really like them, they're way too expensive, they never return my calls, all that stuff, they just open the door for you. All you've got to do is walk in and say, well, would you like to check out this Halon thing? Because I know a lot of people I know like it. It's very inexpensive. You might as well give it a shot, right? And let that be what sells it, that they in fact just told you that they didn't like their solution.
Okay. Hey, this is awesome. I have appreciated your time so much. Again, I'm excited to just have you as a resource here in this sort of alternate life I lead in the bookkeeping side hustle group, but also in my, actual bookkeeping business, where I am looking to grow, and this has been helpful to me. Like in real time, I am seeing the fruits of this partnership. So that's awesome. And
I appreciate the time. I've enjoyed it.
yeah,
This was easy. This was fun.
awesome. Well, I'm going to turn this off. We're going to say sayonara, since you've got those samurai swords on your back wall there. And
This is not real.
adios.
Ignore the facade that I am in any way sword-like.
Sword-like. Awesome. All right. Talk to you later.
See ya. Bye.
All right. Bye.